And welcome to Shift Into One on thatchannel.com. I want to thank my guests for being here, but before I do, I just want to say this is a really exciting moment for me to launch the first episode of Shift Into One on thatchannel.com, and I want to thank Blue, who has been instrumental and so helpful to me today. This is my first day, so forgive all the errors and quirks that are going to happen tonight, because I'm sure they're going to. The show is not planned. We're going to just fly by the seat of our pants and just see where it goes, and that's truly about being in your now. I also want to thank Hugh for and everybody here for allowing me the opportunity to have the show here. So the show is called Shift Into One, and today we chose to launch the show today on Remembrance Day, November 11th, because numerologically speaking, 11 is a very significant number, but more so, Remembrance Day I think is really significant for obvious reasons, but to the purpose and the mission of Shift Into One, which I also call SIO. It's significant in that SIO is about remembering who we are, our true nature, the true nature of our being, and of why we're here, and what our life is what existence in this 3D world is all about. And it's about remembering our connection to all that is. I have a couple of guests here today. Natalie, who everybody probably recognizes because Natalie is a co-host with Hugh on Liquid Lunch every Tuesday, right, Natalie? And Natalie has graciously accepted to be being here and helping me along in the show, which I'm so grateful for. Thank you so much, Natalie. And my wonderful associate, Michael Jenkins, who's also here, and a wonderful partner in the project and Shift Into One. And so thank you, Michael, for taking part in this and being here with me on the show. So to get right into it, I have been on Liquid Lunch a couple of times and talked a little bit about what it is, but for those who haven't seen the show, Shift Into One. Shift stands for See How Isness Fuels Transformation, and One stands for Our Now Experience. And the project is, or the program, if you will, it's really a work, it's a process, and what it really is about eradicating fear through deprogramming our belief systems. And the reason we're doing this is because we want to become responsible for our thoughts, words, feelings, and actions. That's essential, so that we free ourselves from the prison of our mind and end our suffering. And why is this important? Well, this is important because we are at a point in our evolution where we are starting to raise humanity's frequency, humanity's vibration. It's the next step in our evolution. We need to become responsible for all that we think, all that we do, all that we say, and all that we feel. And this is what this program is all about. It's here because we're ready for it. It's here at this time because the time is crucial. The time is now for us to start taking responsibility, and it's essential that we do this, so that we can continue to move forward in our evolution. So in light of that, there are some principles that we can discuss, and then feel free, Natalie and Michael, to jump in at any point in time. And if you have any questions or what have you, you're familiar with some of them. And Natalie, you've actually been a bit of a student of the program, and everybody's a student of life and everybody's a teacher. So Natalie's actually helping me to understand the program. Everybody, it's an exchange. It's a teacher-student kind of exchange, and everybody that takes part learns and teaches. It's an equal exchange of energy and of learning. So as Natalie learns, I learn. So anyway, the principles, some of there's two laws in Shift Into One. In SIO, there's two laws. One is the law of one, and the other is the law of karma. So let's discuss the law of one a little bit. The law of one is basically suggests that it's exactly what it says. Everything is one. We are all connected. Everybody is connected to everyone and everything. I'm connected to you, Michael. I am connected to this microphone. This microphone is connected to me. We're all energy. Natalie, I'm connected to you. So everything I say, do, think, or feel about somebody or something else, I'm actually saying, feeling, doing, or thinking about me. Everything, 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 everything. And that's a law, that's a given. This, even though we may not understand this on all levels of our being, this is something we need to intellectually accept if we're going to continue to do this work and raise our frequency. So that's law number one. Law number two is the law of karma. What is karma? I spoke a little bit about it on the show on Tuesday, on Liquid Lunch. Karma is basically an emotional charge account that we come in with, and it's about balancing our account. At this time in humanity's evolution, we tend to be in a negative. There's much more negativity than there is positivity, and so we're basically in a deficit, which I think a lot of governments and the economy can relate to. But on an emotional level, we are in a negative, and what this work does is help us clear our karma so that we become neutral, so we get to a 0 point, and it's from that place that we raise our frequency, that we raise our vibration. So it's essential that we start to clear our karma if we are to do this. So these two laws are crucial. They're key to the process and to the work. Now, a lot of things fall under. They as we continue to do the work, you will see how these two kind of blend in together, and they kind of blur. It sometimes is hard. A lot of this work is so integrated. It's very hard to break it down because this work is multidimensional. And it's non-linear. It's very hard to break it down and reduce it into a linear understanding. And this is as linear as it can get. And it's important that we understand this on a linear level, but it goes far beyond that. The law of karma and the law of one, while I'm speaking about them as two separate things, they actually work together, as does everything in the work of SIO. So those two are crucial, and they're a great place to start. The other tenets of SIO are that the most important relationship you will ever have is with your higher self, and you will see how this works with the law of karma and the law of one in a minute. The most important relationship you will ever have is with your higher self, not your spouse, not your daughter, not your animals, just yourself. This is what you come in this world with, and this is what you leave with. And this is pretty much all we have. So it's very, very, very important that we understand this and we open ourselves up to this. Okay? Now, everybody that's in our life, every person, place, thing, event, situation in our life is an aspect of ourself. This is how this ties in again into the karma, and into your with your higher self, and with the one, because everything is an aspect of you. Okay, everything is an aspect of you that your higher self brings to you in order to clear karma, so that you start to remember who you are. That's what this is all about. Every person, place, thing, event, situation, whatever in your life is an aspect of you that your higher self brought to you, your lower self, your ego self, in order to clear karma so that you can remember who you truly are. The reason I mentioned it twice is because it's key, that this is the foundation for SIO. This is the true reason that we're here at this point in our evolution, because we are trying to clear our karma as we move up the evolutionary ladder, and that's essential. So those are the basic tenets of SIO, including, I should mention the other one, which is about being in your isness. Your only power is in your now. There is everything else. Anything that is not in your now renders you powerless. We cannot have power if we are not in our now. And when I speak of power, I speak of our inner power and our power to create our reality. So that's the kind of power I'm talking about. I'm not talking about physical power. I'm not talking about physical might. I'm talking about emotional, spiritual power. That's the true power. And you will only get that when you are in your now, and you are only in your now when you realize your connection to all that is. That is why to be in your isness is to be at one with all that is, and to be at one with all that is to be in your now experience. Because you cannot be at one with anything if you are outside of your now experience. If there's any element of time involved, you cannot be in your now experience. So this is hard to understand on an intellectual level, and what I hope to do over the next, throughout the show, throughout the program, over the next few weeks, I'm hoping to start to break this down for people, to make it real for people, to make it experiential, and so that people can apply these kinds of things into their life. So this is where we're going to start.
Okay, so I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
But going back to where you just started, and the law of one and the law of karma, and how everything you say to someone else, if it's negative, that's saying something about yourself.
That's right.
Okay, so what if you're trying to help someone, so you don't mean it in a bad way? So what if you have a friend who smokes a lot or they drink a lot, and so you tell them, oh, if you keep doing this, you'll have a bad life. That's at lack of a better example, but you're kind of predicting they will have misfortune in their future. So is that going to come back to you even though you're trying to help them? Like, is it exactly the words, or is it the feeling behind it?
It's the feeling behind it. It's the intention. If your desire is to truly help and to truly offer assistance, then that intention is well-meaning. But here's the thing: you're not in your now if you are judging them. Because what you're basically doing is comparing them to another person or another place or another situation that is bringing up that conclusion. You've already created the conclusion when you say, I'm afraid this is going to happen to you. Right? You're already saying that, okay, if you go down this route, this is what's going to happen to you. And you're judging it by saying that that's bad. If that is what they choose to do, whether they're conscious or not, then you have to honor that experience. If you see them going into an area that you think is detrimental to them, if in your heart you feel you want to advise them, then you can do that. But leave it at that. That's how you become of service. And that's how we cannot be responsible for how other people receive our message, only how we deliver our message. If we are coming from an ego place, and suggested that, don't do that because I'm better than you and I know better and that kind of thing, then that's our issue. And that's something we need to deal with. There's no right or wrong here. Okay, so even if that is where we're coming from, I can say to somebody, wow, that's a beautiful dress. I love that red dress, and I could mean that and say, that red looks wonderful on you. I can mean that, and they could think, you know what? She thinks that I look terrible in this dress. And she's being sarcastic, then that's that person's issue. If I really meant that, then that's my issue. Then I need to deal with that. It's about the intention behind the action. It's not about the actual action itself. This is what I mean about taking responsibility.
Okay, and if you're presented with an event or an opportunity to clear karma, will it always be not a good situation? Like, will it always be something you don't want to do or that will cause you pain? Like, is that the only way to clear karma?
Pain is a judgment.
Okay.
Suffering, yes. Suffering, suffering is a release, and unfortunately, in the 3D world, suffering is one of our best friends. It is the way we learn. Most people learn through failure and through suffering. Unfortunately, we don't learn when everything goes well. That's just luck, I guess. But I can tell you, as we move up the ladder in evolution, excuse me, as we move up the ladder, suffering will no longer be the way in which we learn. It'll be through expansion and through love. Suffering is about the lack of love and about us learning how to love. Suffering is about us getting our connection back. Whenever we suffer, it's because we're disconnected to source. This is actually a really good time, I think, to bring up what love is, what the definition of love is. Love, in the universal sense, is let our value emanate. This is what I term love, the word love to mean. And basically, what love is our connection to source. And again, through the karma and through the aspects of us that we bring to our life, everything we bring to our life either helps us connect to source or not connect to source. Now, we can learn from the disconnections how we want to be connected. And in the world the way it is now, because we are leaning towards a negative orientation at this point in time, we learn through suffering. As the pendulum swings and more people raise their vibration, we will start to lean towards the positive intention. We will start learning through expansion and through love. Love is expansion. Okay? Any lack of love is contraction. Okay? That cuts us off. That disconnects us to source. And we are coming here to learn how to be connected to source. So what does suffering do? Suffering, if we allow that suffering, it's when we don't allow that suffering, Natalie, that it brings pain. It's when we don't, when we try not to feel that suffering and we deny that suffering, that we create the pain. When we allow and surrender to that suffering, we actually transcend that suffering. We actually create space for the suffering to be released. And then in that space can come love and can come connection. So suffering is probably, mandatory to releasing karma. Yeah, it does. It sucks.
It's just part of it.
It does. It does.
So just clear it as fast as you can so you can...
Well, you know what? I wouldn't say clear it as fast as you can. I would say clear it. Be careful what you ask for, because some people who go through this work, they take on so much. They clear so much so soon that they feel like they are spinning out of control. And that's because all of the stuff starts to come up for clearing, and it feels like it's more than you can actually physically handle. So, it's about the process. You'll get there. There's no fear about that. You'll get there. Try to enjoy the process, because it's an amazing process. The greater the suffering, the greater the greater the potential to expand, and that's an amazing experience to go through.
Okay, this is probably a 3D mindset then, because say maybe in this life you realize that it's worth being a good person and you want to be a good person, but you can't control. Maybe you can, but say that you can't control what happened in your past lives, because that's where you're clearing the karma.
Yes.
Okay. But you eventually want to have a good life and enjoy your time on Earth. At least I would, and I would like to think other people want to enjoy their time here too. So wouldn't you want the suffering to come out all at once? Like, why would you want to be happy and then suffer, happy then suffer? Roller coaster.
Quite simply because your body couldn't handle it. You could not, because where we are now, we have people who are at the point of raising their vibration at this point, who are taking it to the next level, have lived many, many, many lives. They're here to say, okay, you know what, I'm done. Let's move forward to the next. And in order to do that, okay, we need to clear what you say are past lives. They're at all time is simultaneous, so there's no such thing as a past life. There's just other lives. Everything is happening at the same time. But to your point, you cannot possibly clear everything all at once, because the layers, if you will, the layers of the onion that create that karma are so deep, because we've had so many incarnations, we've had so many lives here and so many experiences, and we agreed to do this. Oh, that's another thing I did want to talk about, the soul contract. We agreed to do this, but there are so many layers that it's not possible to do it in one fell swoop. We couldn't. Your body couldn't handle it. Your mind couldn't handle it. You would pretty much fry your circuit. You would and surge out, and pretty much that would be the end of you. So it's not possible. You just can't. Although you would want that from a linear perspective, absolutely, because we're all about efficiency and we're all about cutting to the chase, and but it can't happen that way.
But is it possible, do you think, to still have a happy life even while you're clearing karma?
Absolutely. Enjoy the process. Absolutely. There's beauty in the suffering. There's absolute beauty in the suffering, because you're transcending.
Wouldn't you be bringing down people around you if you're suffering?
Oh, absolutely not. You know what? I think we're going to take a break.
Okay.
So what we'll do is we'll talk about the soul contract, and we'll talk about that when we come back. So we'll be back in a couple of minutes on Shift Into One on thatchannel.com.
Shaped like a woman and fun to hold, tied wound strings the color of gold, strumming out a rhythm and harmony, taking a ride and playing the lead. We'll practice hard and pay our dues. We'll do anything to get to you. Up and down the road to the corner bar, playing for crowds and tips in a jar, stealing hearts and setting them free with a few chords and a melody that lifts us up from where we are, riding around this friendly star. We're traveling by guitar. Yes, we are, babe. Like some teenage kid in a basement room, shooting from the hip and praying for the moon, playing all night till the fingers bleed. The kids got desire and feeling the need, throwing all caution to the wind. Yeah, we've all been there and back again, up and down the road to the corner bar, playing for friends and tips in a jar, stealing hearts and setting them free with a few chords and a melody that lifts us up from where we are. Don't need a plane, train, a car. We're traveling by guitar. Well, you might be a front porch picker and never get above third fret, or in the company of others like Les Paul, Merle, and Chet. Left you where you are. Left you where you are, babe.
We're back, and wow, what a beautiful song that was. Really, really love that song. We're back. Shift Into One on thatchannel.com. Natalie, you had mentioned something about suffering and karma. What was that again?
If you're suffering to clear karma, that's part of life, so
Yes.
you have to go through it. But are you bringing down the people around you at that time that you're clearing?
Actually, it's quite the opposite. You're actually taking responsibility. A lot of what people do is rather than take responsibility, they bring people down because they blame others for their circumstances. So when you're clearing your karma, you're actually taking responsibility to clear. So absolutely you're not. I have never experienced that. It's quite the opposite. It's the only person that suffers, unfortunately, is the person. So yeah, I would say no, that's not the case at all. But we had talked about we had mentioned just before the break something about soul contract. That's also really important and ties in with the whole law of karma and law of one thing. The soul contract is basically, the best way to describe this is we are all, we have a core essence or a soul. And it's like, try to picture the center of the sun. so if you picture the center of the sun and you have all the rays of the sun, okay, each ray represents an incarnation. So when you look at time being simultaneous or circular even, you can basically see that it's not linear. If you look at a sun diagram and you see the rays, it's circular. Okay, so you can tune in and tap into anything at any time. When you go back to your core essence, you go back to your soul. Okay, so this soul is what creates the contract. Okay, this soul contract says, okay, I want to experience such and such, and I'm going to experience it as a person by the name of Natalie, and I'm going to say Natalie is going to live in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and I'm going to choose these people for my parents, and I'm going to choose this person to be my husband, and I'm going to choose these people to be my children. So these are all the ground rules that Natalie basically said she wants to do in order to create this experience. And we do this many times with the many different incarnations that we have. So the soul contract, okay, is what we've chosen to come here before we've come here. And we do have free will because we have information, we have access to our multidimensional self at that point. When we come here and incarnate in the physical body, we forget that. That's where they call the veil. We forget all of that, the multidimensional self, and we have to. That's as it should be. We need to forget in order to experience this game, okay, the illusion of duality. We need to really, really believe in this so that we have those experiences and create those experiences. Now, our actions from those experiences is what creates the karma. Okay, so what we're doing at this point in our evolution is we are trying to bring our karma to negative balance so that the soul, so that we can vibrate at a higher level, but that the soul can start to go back to the unity, to go back, so that we go back to our soul essence and we understand our multidimensional self. And I'm hoping I'm explaining this well. I'm not sure that I am. I think I have some questions, but
you should ask, because that'd be really funny if someone could answer it.
Yeah, actually, yeah. Anybody feel free to pipe in at any point. But we can also, when we experience ourselves as our soul, everybody goes back to their soul at some point or another. And whether we know it or not, and this is a really interesting thing, and a lot of people find this really hard to believe, when we go to sleep at night, we leave our body. Everybody leaves their body and they go back to their soul. You go back and regenerate. And whether we realize it or not, we are actually communicating to other aspects of ourself and to our soul. I mean, there's a common saying sleep on it. And oftentimes people wake up and they have the answer. Well, why do you think that is? Because they've received the answer through an altered state, through the state of the consciousness expansion through our multidimensional self. So it's important that we understand that contract provide the ground rules for how we choose to have our experience here. So at a certain level, that contract is where we have free will to decide, okay, I am going to incarnate as this person called Sandra, so that Sandra can have all these experiences. Okay, now when I'm here as Sandra, I have a certain amount of free will, but it's very, very limited. I think there's been a misconception about the amount of free will that we have. I have choice in how I perceive the events that happen in my life. Okay, you can say, well, I didn't choose my parents. I didn't choose, to have a terrible boss. Well, yeah, you did. Yes, you did, in order to create a certain experience. Now, you can choose here how you want to interpret that experience. So it's like, I liken it to a child in a sandbox. You're in a sandbox and you're playing in the sand, and your mom, says, okay, go out and play. And it's, you get a certain amount of time to experience that. You say from 12 to 3 o'clock, you're playing in the sandbox. You can create the house. You can do all that you want. But then your mom comes out and says, okay, Johnny, it's time to come in now. So that window of time is now over, and now you have to go back. You had the free will to play in that sandbox. It was limited. You had the boundaries. You could go outside of that sandbox, and you had the boundaries of time. So you had the boundaries of space, and you had the boundaries of time. And now your mom is coming in saying, hey, it's time to go and have something to eat or whatever, and so that now you no longer have that free will. Okay, so that's the free will, the limited free will I'm talking about. Within this playground that we call life, we have the free will to choose how we want to perceive the events that happen in our life. But as far as the actual events happening to ourselves, the car accident that we might get into, or the bad marriage, or whatever, we agree to that from free will, from a point of free will on another level of our being. So that's that. You know, it's a fine line. Michael, I think you have a question.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I wanted to say about this work in general. Like, these are really, really exciting times to live in, and I'm seeing that this is the perfect time for everyone to begin to look at these kinds of things, because, you know, I find that this whole thing about suffering, we have a choice about how we can be with that suffering. We can be with it as a lesson, or we can try to push it away from ourselves too. And we are at this particular time. I mean, I can't imagine any more of an exciting time to live, because there are so many things that are going to be challenging everyone. And we haven't really talked about that, so I wanted to throw that in there. I think that's what brings me here. I think that's what brings a lot of people to this work, and more people are looking at ways to be in their life. And that's paramount for me.
Yes.
How do I be in my life? How does that work? How do I move ahead? How do I move forward? How do I stop making the so-called mistakes that I made in my life? And I think, well, when I met Sandra, I realized that she was coming from this place of knowing, okay? And where the information comes from, we don't really know. It comes from all kinds of places, but it resonates with us. And what she was speaking about resonated with me, as and still does. And we have this way of feeling motivated around this, and I do anyway. I want to tell everybody, you know, what I've discovered. So that's the one thing that I wanted to say about this. I see we've really jumped into this and just really gotten some of the groundwork down. But this whole thing about suffering, I spent a year and a half ago, 2 years ago now, 3 years ago maybe, 2000 and early.
Time is irrelevant.
Yeah, time is irrelevant. But I learned about this whole idea of suffering by working with a Zen master for about a month. Mm-hmm. And of course they talk a lot about suffering. But what I got is exactly what Sandra is talking about, that this suffering is something that you either see it one way or you see it another. And if you can see it differently than the way you see it, then time disappears for it. It becomes something that you actually welcome, and other people don't react to you as you're suffering. They actually see you going through this process of becoming, and that's exciting for them. And if it's not exciting for them, they're probably not the kind of people that you want in your life anyway, because, you know, when we do learn and we do move ahead, we need people in our lives that support that and love us and care about us and want whatever lessons that we're finding to come through.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think suffering, if we can see suffering as our opportunity to expand, suffering as our opportunity to expand, to go beyond suffering. And once we realize that suffering only comes from the mind, suffering equals time. Once we remove that element from our being and our understanding, we are truly free, and there is no more suffering. So that's where we want to get. And the thing about this work is it shows you how to step into your power by stepping out of yourself. And that's crucial. That is, as we raise our vibration, as we move to where humanity is going, we are going from a duality consciousness to unity consciousness. And so throughout the program, from the months coming ahead, a lot of what I will talk about will be 3D versus 5D. So I'll use the term, well, this is 3D and this is 5D. 3D represents duality, the appearance that we are separate, and 5D represents unity consciousness. And the funny, ironic thing is the two almost seem like they're a lie. It's like oil and water. They don't mix, I think. So it's like when you do something that's in 3D, you're actually living a lie in the 5D perspective. And when you're in a 5D perspective and you have to come back to the 3D world, you're actually living a lie in the 3D world, because they're polar opposites. The principles, well, the very principle, the law of duality versus the law of unity, that in and of itself is a lie. The fact that we appear separate, it appears that Natalie's there and Michael's here and I'm here, that too, according to the fifth, from a 5D perspective. When I say 5D, I mean fifth dimension. That too is a lie. So it actually, I think it begs a bit of a talk about the dimensions. This work deals with, basically, it deals with third, fourth, and fifth dimension. And pretty much as we clear our karma and we clear our belief systems, that's fourth dimension. So this is really about clearing the fourth dimension as we move up higher to fifth dimension. Michael.
Yeah, about these dimensions, the one thing that occurs to me, and we've talked about this kind of, but we didn't do it in terms of dimensions, is that, sometimes people think, oh, well, I'm going up to a higher dimension, and therefore I'm not going to have to be in the 3D world anymore. And it's not so much necessarily about that as it is about learning how to be in all dimensions.
Exactly. It's like, I'm going to come up with a little hand diagram again. It's like an upside down triangle, and the third dimension is down here, and the fourth is covers the third, and the fifth is up higher, and the fifth actually envelops the fourth and the third. It's not one or the other. It actually makes you actually have that information, and that information, it becomes a part of who you are. So you can always go back down to 3D. You can always go back down to that. It's an expansion. It's not an exchange. It's a growing beyond, but you can always call on that. Interestingly enough, before I had my awakening, which brought me to this point, I was very 3D, just like everybody else, and very much in my mind. But, like everybody else, I was doing a ton of things, and I, would forget things and got caught up in things, and, spread myself too thin. So I didn't do anything really well because I was trying to do too many things. And this kind of clearing of the mind and moving up beyond 3D and 4D into 5D actually makes your mind that much more effective, because you become very, very aware of energy and how to use energy, and you become very efficient. You know how we talk go energy efficient? Well, we should also be, again, taking responsibility for ourselves and understanding how emotions work and how energy works between the emotional interaction and the dynamics of the human relationship, and understand the energy dynamics that take place between the human relationships. And that's another thing I think we're going to talk about in one of the shows of Shift into One. But yeah, so it's I lost my thinking. You see, I'm not thinking, I'm feeling. It's really important that we do understand the energy dynamics and how to become very, very efficient with those energy dynamics as we start to be aware of our energy, and you become actually better at doing the things you do in the 3D world. It's not like, oh my God, I have so much more to learn and so much more to do. You actually become freer, because you are now using your mind for what your mind was meant to be used for. Our mind was not meant to think. Our mind is meant to carry out tasks. We have put so much pressure on our mind. When I say mind, I mean ego, and we've put so much pressure that, and it's not fair. It's really not fair. We have asked a lot of our mind, and basically I'm saying let's use our mind for what it's meant for, which is to carry out our tasks. Our thinking should come from our higher self, which comes from our feeling. So this is the difference between going from a belief system to a befeel system, where the befeel system is where your mind just does the execution. It doesn't do the thinking. And your mind is more than grateful for it. And as a result, you carry out your tasks, your day-to-day tasks, in so much more efficiency, so much more smoothly, seamless, and you have a lot more energy as a result. So that's one of the 3D benefits.
One of the
this.
things that the mind can do is it can get in a loop where it's thinking, I should do this, well, I did this, now I should do that, well, maybe I should do it again. And it just goes around and around in this loop, thinking that it can actually think its way out of that loop.
And it can't, and that goes to what we were talking about before we actually came on the air. What are our belief systems? Our mind is just a place where our belief systems are stored, and our belief systems are just basically patterns of thought that are so repetitious we no longer think them. They're just naturally there. So our mind is where we store that. So yes, you're right. Our mind is kind of like a tape recorder that you just press, play the play button over and over and over again. But we think it's a place where we think, and it's not. It's a place that just carries out. It just executes. So it's important that we understand the place that our mind has, and through this, through releasing the karma, we start to use the mind as our tool instead of being the tool of the mind. Right now, for most people serve their mind, and through this kind of work, it's the mind serving us. And again, that's the 3D versus 5D. 3D, we serve the mind. 5D, the mind serves us. And that's a huge difference. It's all the difference in the world.
But it's possible to have a 5D mindset in a 3D world?
Oh my God.
Okay, never mind.
5D mindset in a 3D world. Well, 5D does not have a mindset.
Okay.
A being set.
A being set.
Say. I think it's time for us to take a break, eh, Blue? I think, okay, so we're going to take a break and we'll come back for the last segment of the show on thatchannel.com. See you in a minute.
Dark. Then this morning I woke up without you in my heart. It might be forgiveness, or I've just stopped giving a damn that you killed a part of me. Who cares that you know who I am? How do you feel? How do you feel? With a heart cold as steel. Truth hurts, now doesn't it? Sting when it's real. To run head first into it, and those words that never heal. You said I pushed you, but I'm the one on the ground. And if we could start over now, bet you'd still take me down. How do you feel? Tell me, how do you feel? With a heart cold as steel. To say that I've cried, been broken apart, and ripped up inside, and I'm not above, after all that you've done, saying I love you still.
And we're back to Shift Into One on thatchannel.com. And I think, Natalie, you had a question before we go into some more stuff.
Yep, just to wrap up what we were just talking about before the break, is it possible to have a 5D mindset in a 3D world?
Okay, to have That's a great question. I think it's all in the wording, because I think 5D doesn't deal in mind. 5D deals in feeling or being. So I think it would be more about having a 5D feeling or 5D being in a 3D world, and that is entirely possible. And that's actually what we need to do in order to evolve and move up. We have to get all the rules and all the laws down pat here. This is our training ground. This is where we learn to become a fearless warrior. This is about eradicating fear. Remember, the primary mission of SHIfT into One is to eradicate fear. And when I speak of fear, I don't speak of the physical fear. If someone's running at you, with a knife, you're going to run away, and that's okay. That's cool. Go for it. But I'm talking about mind fear. I'm talking about psychological fear. I'm talking about the fear that is based on time. So I'm talking about coming from the mind, which the definition of mind is thoughts wrapped up in, or trapped in time. So that's what I'm talking about. So it's very, very possible to be free of that and still live in this 3D world. In fact, we have to get to that point before we can evolve. Once we evolve and raise our frequency to another level, once we're there, there's no going back. So we have to get it right here. That's why we have to become responsible. If we do not become responsible, it's just not going to happen. It can't possibly happen.
Become responsible for your actions.
For your thoughts, words, feelings, and actions. And it all originates from thought. Everything comes from thought. Thoughts are what create those words, those feelings, those actions. And this actually brings us to a little bit of a discussion about the third, fourth, and fifth dimension. We create our own reality. From within, forms without. Okay, so we create everything in our life is a manifestation of our thoughts and our beliefs. Okay, third dimension is the physical manifestation of our thoughts. Okay, this is the dense matter. This is the place where we actually create the form. Okay, our thoughts, our belief, our feeling, these are all fourth dimensional properties for the human being, for a person who's incarnated as a human being. This is where our reality is truly created. It's created in the fourth dimension. It's manifested. It becomes form in the third dimension. Okay, and through the element of time, the time is the indicator, is the window period is the window in which our thoughts manifest into some sort of form. Okay, now this time is our learning period, where we learn how to become responsible with our thoughts as they become form. Okay, once we move in to the next, once we evolve and we raise our vibration, we move into no time, so our thoughts are instantly created. So that's why we need to be responsible. We need to become responsible, because if we were to be able to create instantly right now, we would have been annihilated. We need that period of time, the thing that we call time, which is just a window, a space, okay, in which our thoughts become our form. And we need that period, right, so that we can reflect and we can try and understand and learn from that. Once we become responsible for our thoughts, words, feelings, and actions, we raise our vibration. And that's when we go in, that's when we understand the law of one. And that's when we no longer need the law of karma. That's when we've cleared all karma, and it just becomes the law of one. So yes, it's very possible to be here, from living on Earth from a 5D perspective is basically heaven on Earth. Pretty much, that's it.
Yeah, so now I just have to figure out how to do that. But that
you don't even know where to
takes
start
time.
with asking the questions. I know it's pretty it's pretty intense, and it's very, very difficult to explain in a linear perspective. From a 3D perspective, when I say, everything is an aspect of you, it's all about you. From a 3D perspective, you could say, well, that's very selfish. It's not all about me. I want to help others. But from a 5D perspective, it is all about you. From a 5D perspective, it's going from being selfish to self-is. Okay, and that's the difference. Selfish is all about you from an ego perspective, from a 3D level. Self-is about all about you from a 5D perspective, from a unity consciousness, understanding that everything is you. So you take responsibility for all of that. Michael and I were actually talking on the way down. We came together in the car, and we were talking a little bit about your second cousin who brought you who emailed you that video, and I thought, wow, why would you be talking about this now? It was pretty much a pretty awful video, in one in which I suffered even listening to it. Do you want to just talk about it a little bit?
Yeah, it's a video. I think it was put out by people who want to end animal abuse around the world, and I found that it had just an incredible emotional impact when you watch it. It's something that the mind can't even, grasp or get around. It hits you, and the question that I guess that I had around that is that what do I do with that?
Can you just describe what was on there and the impact that it had? What you described to me.
Animals were being used for food, or possibly, but the worst of it is that they were being raised strictly for the Western world to buy pieces of fur, like there were dogs and raccoons and this kind of thing, and they were being raised just for that purpose.
And they were being tortured.
And
skinned alive.
They were being skinned alive. They were just the convenience of these people who were raising them rather than anything humane. And the camera work that they did on this had you right down looking at what these animals actually are subjected to.
And what you described to me was they were being skinned alive. And so you thought an animal was skinned, and you thought this dog was dead. It was a dog, and it was in China, I believe you said? China or
China,
Korea?
Yeah.
I know that they do them, that happens in Korea.
This was an animal. You want to get the whole deal?
Yes,
right?
I do.
The whole
Absolutely.
thing. This was an animal that the entire skin had been removed from the animal. I thought it was dead, and then it raised its head and its eyes turned and looked at you, and or looked into the camera.
And that's what I wanted you to talk about. That is, to me, extraordinary. Extraordinary because we need to take responsibility for that. All of us need to take responsibility for something like that. And as we think about Remembrance Day, as we remember all the soldiers, I also want to acknowledge all of the animals and all of the wildlife and all of the suffering that this planet has gone through at the hands of humans. This is what instigated my whole awakening, was the suffering that this planet is going through. And we need to take responsibility for it. And even though, Michael, you didn't do that, even though I didn't do that, even though you, Natalie, didn't do that, collectively we did agree to this, and we need to take responsibility for that. And so I would at this moment like to remember all of the animals who suffer needlessly. This is not necessary, and it's not about hating the people who do this, because they're only taught what they know. So it's about forgiveness, it's about surrendering to them, it's about thanking the animal for showing us, giving us an opportunity to experience that love, to experience that compassion. And my heart is beating right now so much as I speak about this, because it's something that's, we're so connected. And I think Blue is crying. Boy, okay. So this is what this work is all about.
This is what this work is all about. Creating a new reality.
Yeah.
On an individual basis that reflects in our reality as a whole.
Yes, this is about understanding all aspects of us, and all we can do is send out love to the person and people who are doing this, even to this day, and be grateful for the opportunity that these animals are giving us to experience that, and to experience our connection to Source, because it is through this disconnection that we want to do something about it. So I would like to remember those animals and all the suffering. Through that suffering, we can raise our vibration through the sending the love and the light. And as you said, Michael, what can I do? Well, what we're doing right now is doing something, because we are responsible for every single thought. Every single thought we have has a ripple effect to everywhere on this planet. Everywhere on this planet. Every thought we have. So as we send love and light, we are affecting that consciousness. We can do it through external advocacy type work, through being an activist, but it will never happen on that alone. It has to be a shift that comes from within. It has to be. People have to understand what you're doing to that dog, you are doing to yourself. We have to get that. Okay, if we don't get that, we're not going. It's that simple. And that's why Shift into One is born. That is why I ask people to apply this work into their life, to start creating that shift, because as more and more people do, we can help those who are struggling to get it. We can help them get that. As more and more of us become aware, we can start to create the shift in those others who are not aware. It takes half of 1% of the world population to create a shift, folks. Half of 1%. That's all we need to do to start to create a shift. That's what we need to do. So I think we're going to pretty much wrap the show up. On that, I thank you for being here, Natalie, and I hope you come back. I hope you're here again at the next show. Michael, thank you for being here. Blue, thank you so much. You've been phenomenal. Thank you for making my first day so easy. Join us again in 2 weeks. We will be here on the 25th of November, Thursday, 7 o'clock. And if anybody has any questions, comments, please email me, shiftinto1@hotmail.com, or just Google Shift Into One on the internet and you'll find my meetup site. And you can email me from there too. Thank you so much, and love you all. Good night.
What we